welcome to part 2 of chapter 9 in our rendezvous with Colorado history. Alright, so I am starting on page, I probably should have opened this up before, but you know what? It's okay. I am starting on page 124 of chapter 9. It's titled Ute Indians. The Ute Indians had problems similar to the Plains Indians. Settlers wanted to farm and raise cattle on the Utes' hunting land. Prospectors moved onto Indian land to mine for gold. The Ute decided they had a couple of choices. They could give up their land to the settlers, but then they would not have any hunting grounds. How would they be able to get food? Another choice was to learn how to farm or ranch. Ouray was an important Ute leader. His name means arrow. His mother was an Apache. His father was an Uncompahgre Ute. Ouray was brought by the Spanish family, so he learned to speak English and Spanish as well as his native tongue. Ouray felt that the Ute Indians needed to change or soldiers would come and fight. He started a farm to raise sheep. He even moved around a house that the U.S. government built for him, Many of the Ute did not agree with Ouray. They did not want to change their ways. Captain Jack and Douglas were two Ute leaders who felt that way. They lived near the White River in western Colorado. They were an Indian agency at the White River. An agent of the United States government was sent there to teach the Indians how to become farmers. His name was Nathan Meeker. For a while, the Utes listened to Mr. Meeker. The Ute children went to a school that Mr. Meeker began. Horse racing was very important to the Utes. Mr. Meeker did not approve of horse racing. One day, he plowed up one of the racetracks to plant crops. The Indians were very angry. They attacked and killed Meeker and all of the men working there. The women and children, including Meeker's wife and daughter, were taken as prisoners. "What happened to the prisoners?" asked Jessie. "The Utes released them after a few days," responded Mr. Brown. "The soldiers asked Ouray to help make peace. Ouray did his best to keep peace and protect the rights of the Indians. Douglas, one of the leaders of the Meeker Massacre, was the only one punished. He was put in jail for a short time. Most of the other Utes moved into a reservation in Utah." "What happened to Ouray?" asked Nicole. "He died just before his people moved to the reservation," answered Mr. Brown. Beecher Island, the next section. In 1868, 1,000 Cheyenne, Sinks, and Arapaho trapped 50 troops on Beecher Island in the Arickaree River. This was near present-day town of Ray. For 9 days, they attacked the soldiers. Eventually, more soldiers arrived and saved the troops that were trapped on the island. Summit Springs. Although most of the Indians had moved to reservations, there was a group of Indians who refused to go. They were called Dog Soldiers. The leaders of this group was called Tall Bull. In 1869, soldiers killed Tall Bull in the fight at Summit Springs. He was the last war chief. This was one of the last battles in Colorado. Reservations. "What happened to all the Indians living in Colorado?" asked Juan. All the Indians were required to leave Colorado except for a small part of the southwestern part of the state. By 1881, almost all the American Indians in Colorado were living on reservations. Over time, the reservations became smaller. The Indians could no longer hunt buffalo where they wanted. The land on the reservations was poor, so it was difficult to grow crops. The government had promised they would supply the Indians with food and clothing. Once again, the government did not provide enough supplies. Children were forced to go to missionary schools. Here, they were taught the American way. They were not allowed to keep their own traditions and customs. Today, there are over 22,000 American Indians living in Colorado. There are 2 reservations in the southwestern part of the state. They are the Ute Mountain Ute Reservation and the Southern Ute Reservation. Many northern Ute Indians live in Utah. Around 4,000 Arapaho Indians live on the White River Reservation in Wyoming, and many more live in Oklahoma. About 30,000 Northern Cheyenne live on the reservation at Lame Deer, Montana. Around 5,000 Southern Cheyenne do not live on reservations. They live in towns near Concho, Oklahoma. There are Indians from many tribes around the country that choose not to live on the reservations. Many live in other places so they can find better jobs and schools. Many American Indians who are living on reservations today face lots of problems. A lot of them are having a hard time finding jobs. When they do get jobs, many times the money they earn is barely enough to survive. Places like the Ute Mountain Ute Reservation have recently opened up casinos to help create new jobs and bring more money onto the reservation. Even though they face many problems, American Indians work hard to hold on to their heritage. For example, many of them are learning to read and write their native tongue. They also try to keep many of their beliefs and rituals alive. Each year, Cheyenne from around the country gather in Oklahoma for a sacred arrow ceremony. I think it is really sad how the settlers treated the Indians, said Lindsay. I think that they should be nice to them. Then the Indians would have been nice to the settlers. That's a good point, agreed Mr. Brown. If settlers had tried to live with them and learn from the Indians rather than pushing them aside, Colorado would be an even better place today. Can you imagine what it would be like if we had learned to live like them? What if we took better care of our earth? Maybe then we can still learn from them today. Maybe it's not too late. Speaking of taking care of things, I believe I have some of your stuff, said Mr. Brown as he handed back the things he had taken from their desks. Thank you for being such good sports about this. All right, so like I said in my other video, there are 10 questions up here for what did you learn. I would like you to answer 5 of them, restating the question and then answering it. All right, thanks guys.